leader. This is the MTN 10 o'clock news.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Russ Riesinger. The Montana deep freeze continues. Here's a live look outside from the Stockman Bank weather cam. And the bad news, it's only going to be getting colder as record cold temperatures could be on the way. That begs the question, where has Billings' most vulnerable population, the homeless, been able to stay warm during this week? MTN's David J. went to find out and not only has that answer, but also how you can help.
Russ, a van load of people came over from the crisis center. That's where they screen them before they get here to off the streets. About 5 or 6 people per each van, and they expect about 50 people coming tonight to stay at off the streets.
There's a lot of people that have stayed out as long as they could. They're not wanting to be around other people necessarily, and so they're the difficult ones to reach, to get them to come into a shelter like this. But the cold weather has actually forced them. They're getting cold at night now, where maybe when it was 20 above, they weren't quite so cold. Now at 0 or negative degrees, they're realizing that they can't take that kind of cold, and so they're coming into the shelter. So we've seen our numbers, climb significantly, just with the increase in the cold weather.
Right now, we do not have any funding for hotels or motels, but we are referring them to agencies who are able to try to get them into a shelter. Our mobile meal route, we go out every day still.
And it's hot. These bags, they really keep the heat in. I would say 95% of them are really, really appreciative, and they say, thank you and everything,
Some are living on the streets, but some are just families who come to depend on those meals every night because they're working hard to pay their bills, and, just food insecurity is a real thing right now in so many areas.
It's the Salvation Army and Off the Streets and many others that are helping homeless on a night like this. Russ, we'll send it back to you.
All right, David J. reporting tonight. Thank you. About 40 nonprofits make up the Yellowstone County Continuum of Care, which put together Off the Streets back in the fall. All right, turning to Chief Meteorologist Ed McIntosh now, and it's downright cold outside, and naturally everyone wants to stay warm, but that can also lead to some fire concerns, Ed.
It sure can. Yeah, the first thought when it gets this cold is, how do I stay warm? And so we want to make sure we do that safely. Make sure you're checking that smoke detector, and make sure that things like portable heaters, fireplaces, don't leave them unattended. Make sure there's a good guard in front of that fireplace, and shut things down if you're not going to be in that room for a while. And also use the 3-foot rule. Most of the heating fires that happen at home will happen because just something's too close to that heat source. It's a leading cause of home fires right behind cooking fires, things with the furnace and things going on in your home. So make sure, especially as we get into these really cold temperatures, don't add to the problem with the risk of a fire in your home. We'll take a look at the forecast coming up in a few minutes.
All right, thank you, Ed. Democratic House managers leading the impeachment trial of former President Trump rested their case today. They spent much of the day saying he not only incited the deadly Capitol riot on January 6th, but did nothing to stop it and felt no remorse afterwards. Natalie Brand has the latest from Capitol Hill.
I thought I was following my president. I thought I was following what we were called to do.
Using interviews as evidence, House managers argue rioters believe they were carrying out former President Trump's orders when they stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6th.
Donald Trump told these insurrectionists to come to the Capitol and stop the steal.
And arguing the former president never expressed remorse over the siege, House managers warned that failing to convict him would do future harm.
He was showing defiance. He was telling us that he would do this again, that he could do this again.
The managers serving as prosecutors in the trial preemptively took aim at Mr. Trump's legal team's expected key argument of free speech.
He's been impeached for inciting violent insurrection against the government. Incitement to violent insurrection is not protected by free speech.
One of Mr. Trump's attorneys told reporters he expects to wrap their case in just a few hours, and he accused House managers of political weaponization.
The evidence they have, under no circumstances, would make out a case for incitement.
Republican Senator Bill Cassidy says he wants to hear Mr. Trump's lawyers explain why he didn't call off the rioters and continued to falsely say the election was stolen.
But I don't make a decision until I've heard the other side.
But other GOP senators argue the end result is already known, saying there are not enough Republican votes to convict. Natalie Brandt, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Well, Montana Governor Greg Gianforte was mentioned during today's impeachment proceedings on Capitol Hill. Lead impeachment manager Representative Jamie Raskin used the May 2017 incident where Gianforte assaulted a journalist as proof that former President Trump encouraged violent action. Raskin played a video of Trump at a campaign rally giving approval of Gianforte's actions. Montana Congressman Matt Rosendale has a new committee assignment, one that he says will help military veterans, and it's a bit of a surprise. Rosendale will be the top Republican on the subcommittee for technology modernization on the House Veteran Affairs Committee. The subcommittee is one of 5 on the Veterans Affairs Committee. Rosendale says it's unusual for a freshman legislator to get in such a position, but believes his experience on health care related issues as state insurance commissioner will help in the role. Rosendale, Montana's only congressman, says the subcommittee will be working on improving electronic health records for veterans, which has been a problem.
They have been just in a quagmire for years now. They've spent billions of dollars, quite frankly, trying to have good, accurate records and a transition from active military to being a veteran. I think that most of the veterans will tell you that when they come out and they begin to start the process on trying to access their veterans benefits, that the electronic health records is one of the larger problems that they've been bumping into.
Rosendale also has been assigned a spot on the House Natural Resources Committee. Montana lawmakers heard testimony today on a pair of bills aimed at making it easier to transfer wild bison onto tribal lands. But as MTN's Jonathan Ambarian reports, there's still a lot of debate over what impact that could have.
On Thursday, the House Agriculture Committee held hearings on House Bills 311 and 312, both sponsored by Democratic Representative Marvin Weatherwax Jr. of Browning. Both bills would make changes in how tribes can bring in new wild bison. House Bill 311 would make it easier to bring bison onto an Indian reservation from a national park or another reservation. 312 would remove the requirement that the state veterinarians certify wild bison from the Yellowstone area are free of the disease brucellosis before they're sent to a quarantine facility on the Fort Peck reservation. Supporters say that change would reduce the number of Yellowstone bison that have to be sent to slaughter. They said the Fort Peck facility is capable of keeping bison secure until they're confirmed disease-free. But both bills drew opposition from ranchers and the state vet, particularly because of the possibility that brucellosis could spread to cattle. They said they're concerned about any change in the state's current monitoring plan, and that transferring bison from the Yellowstone area before they're fully cleared could threaten the rest of Montana's brucellosis-free status.
Conducting quarantine on the Fort Peck Reservation would not increase risk to Montana's livestock industry.
Our organization stands firm with the state of Montana that we cannot deviate from our current disease management controls.
Earlier this month, 50 more Yellowstone bison were transferred to the Fort Peck facility. It's the 5th such relocation since 2019. In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
Well, as the state prepares to lift the mask mandate tomorrow, Montana counties reported 338 new cases of COVID-19 today and 2 additional deaths. The 2 deaths out of Gallatin and Lake counties bring the state's total to 1,338. Montana has seen more than 97,000 total cases since the pandemic began, but active cases now have fallen below 3,000. Yellowstone County's first centralized vaccine clinic will be held in Cedar Hall on the Metro Park Fairgrounds next week. Now, this is for people in Phase 1B. The county's Unified Health Command announced the details. The clinic will be providing people with their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. Then people will sign up to receive the second dose that will also be administered at Metro Park before they leave after getting that first shot.
Announced just out from the state that we do anticipate a slightly larger allocation of vaccines to the state next week. And over time, we expect that those allocations will increase. So what we fully expect is that we will grow the Cedar Hall site as large as it can accommodate, and then move to another centralized site, so we'll have multiple sites available. That's the commitment of the Unified Health Command, is to get that vaccine out as quickly as we can by working together to staff sites and get the vaccine administered.
Felton says people will have the option to schedule appointments on Tuesday from 1 p.m. to 4:30. p.m. or Wednesday and Thursday mornings from 8 until 11:30, then later in the day from 1 in the afternoon until 4:30. People will have to have an appointment in order to receive the vaccine. Also, people are being asked to arrive no more than 5 minutes prior to the scheduled appointment time to prevent lines. Availability of appointments is subject to the number of vaccines Yellowstone County receives. A link to sign up to receive the initial vaccine will be posted at covid.riverstonehealth.org at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, or you can call them at 406-651-6596. For the second straight year, Butte's annual St. Patrick's Day Parade will not get the green light this year because of COVID-19. Matt Boyle with the Butte America Foundation said the Butte Health Department rejected the organization's plan to host the parade on March 17th and even worried that a virtual parade would still draw crowds to the parade route. Still ahead on the MTN 10 o'clock news here on Q2, the right person in the right place at exactly the right time. The incredible story of how one man's life was saved during a sudden bout of cardiac arrest. Then a little later in sports, cold outside, but things are heating up on the hardwood. Highlights from two big games coming up in just a bit.